The Illinois State Police report for the pileup on the Kennedy Expressway is exactly what you'd expect. It's 17 pages of dry procedural observation, high-velocity impact, multiple vehicle involvement, rain-slicked conditions. It lists the time of the first 911 call at 3:14 p.m. It notes that the driver of the black SUV, a woman named Claire, was extracted using the jaws of life. It even records the specific PSI of the tire tracks left by the semi-truck that couldn't stop in time. But there's a gap in the record. A 7-minute window between the moment Claire's heart stopped in the back of the ambulance and the moment the ER team at Northwestern caught a pulse. The report says she was unresponsive. It doesn't mention that Claire wasn't in the ambulance anymore. It doesn't mention what she was looking at while her lungs were filling with fluid. I've spent 2 days going over the account she sent us. Claire isn't a mystic. She's a logistics executive. She manages supply chains. She moves things from point A to point B for a living. She doesn't have a vocabulary for the supernatural. She actually seems to hate that she has to tell this story. There's one detail she keeps coming back to: the sound. She says before the world went white, the sound of the rain on her windshield didn't stop. It just changed into something else. The rain didn't stop. That's the first thing I remember noticing, even after the metal started screaming. Even after the airbag hit me so hard I thought my jaw had disintegrated. I could still hear it, but it wasn't hitting glass anymore. It was hitting everything. I was standing in a room. Well, not a room. I don't know why I said room. It was more like the inside of a massive silent engine. Everything was gray. Not a depressing gray, but a neutral one. Like a warehouse before the lights are fully keyed up. And there were these lines, millions of them. They weren't glowing or anything fancy like you see in movies. They were just there, stretched out in every direction, vertical, horizontal. Some were vibrating just a little bit. I know how this sounds. I'm 34. I have an MBA. I run a department that handles 30,000 shipments a day. I don't see lines in the sky. I don't believe in people who talk about energy or whatever. I'm a person who looks at a map and sees nodes and routes. I see efficiency. But standing there in that gray space, I realized I was looking at the actual route, the master schedule of things. I tried to move my arm and I couldn't feel it. I could see where my hand should be, but it didn't have weight. I wasn't scared. That's the part that bothers me now. I should have been terrified. I should have been screaming for help. But I just stood there looking at these lines and I had this thought. It was like I was looking at a supply chain that never broke. I remember thinking, the inventory is all here. Everything that has ever happened, everyone I've ever met, they were all just points on these lines. And then I felt the rain again. It was cold, really cold. I was back on the Kennedy. I could smell the oil and the wet asphalt. I was looking at the front of my SUV, and it wasn't a car anymore. It was a crumpled ball of black metal. I could see the wipers. They were still going. Swish, swish, swish. They were struggling because the glass was gone, and they were just scraping against the mangled frame of the hood. I saw myself. My head was tilted back. There was blood. A lot of it. It looked like someone had tipped a bucket of dark red paint over the driver's side door. I watched a man in a yellow rain slicker run toward me. He was yelling something, but I couldn't hear the words. I could only hear the wipers. I felt this pull, like a magnet was behind my ribs. I wasn't being sucked into a tunnel. I hate that people always say that. It wasn't a tunnel. It was more like the background of the world was being pulled away like a curtain, and I was falling into the wall behind it. I ended up back in the gray, but it wasn't empty this time. There was a man. He was standing about 10 feet away from me. He wasn't wearing a robe. He didn't have a halo. He was wearing something simple, dark. He looked like the kind of person you'd see waiting for a train at Union Station and never think twice about. Except for his eyes. When he looked at me, I felt like my entire life history had just been uploaded into a system that actually understood it. He didn't say welcome. He didn't say don't be afraid. He just looked at me and said, "Claire, you're trying to count the lines again." I didn't answer him at first. My throat felt like it was full of sand. I finally managed to say, "I think I'm dead." He didn't move. He just stood there, and the lines, the ones I'd seen earlier, began to move toward him. They didn't hit him. They flowed into him. Every single one of them. The ones that looked like they were holding up the floor, the ones that were holding up the sky, they all originated from where he was standing. He smiled. It wasn't a big, dramatic smile. It was the kind of smile a project manager gives you when they know you finally figured out the bottleneck in a system. "You're not dead," he said. "You're just finally seeing the infrastructure." I looked at him and I felt this. It wasn't a feeling. It was a realization. My heart wasn't beating, but I could feel his. It was like a pulse that was vibrating through the floor. It wasn't just one pulse, though. It was 3. I know that makes no sense. How can one person have 3 pulses? But it wasn't 3 separate sounds. It was a rhythm, a 3-beat rhythm that was perfectly synchronized. I reached out my hand. I didn't mean to. It was just a reflex. I wanted to touch one of those lines. I wanted to see if they were solid. The moment my fingers got close to one, the man moved. He was suddenly right there. He didn't grab me. He just put his hand near mine. "If you touch that, Claire, you won't be able to go back to the warehouse," he said. I looked at his hand. There was a scar, right in the middle of the wrist. It wasn't a clean surgical scar. It was jagged, like something had been driven through it. I looked up at him. "Who are you?" He didn't answer me with a name. Not then. He just gestured to the gray space around us. "The Father wills the design," he said. His voice was deep, but it sounded like it was coming from inside my own ears. "I am the word that builds it, and the Spirit is the breath that keeps the lines moving. We aren't separate, Claire. You've spent your whole life trying to manage the pieces, but you never looked at the source." I didn't understand. I mean, I grew up going to church in the suburbs. I knew the words, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It was just something we said before we went to brunch. It was a formula, like a tax code you don't really read, but you know you have to follow. But looking at him, I realized I'd been looking at the Trinity like it was a committee, like 3 guys in a boardroom trying to make a decision. Standing in that gray space, watching the lines flow into him, I saw it was a single motion. It was one action happening in 3 ways at once. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. I felt my knees give out. I didn't hit the floor, because there wasn't really a floor, but I felt myself sink. I'm not a religious person. I'm not good at this. He stepped closer. I could smell the rain on him. Why would he smell like the rain from I-90? "You don't have to be good at it," he said. "You just have to stop trying to be the one who keeps the shipments on time. You can't even keep your own heart beating as Claire." I looked back toward where I thought the highway was. I could see the red lights of the ambulance now. They were flickering through the gray, like a bad connection on a video call. I saw a paramedic, a young guy, maybe 25, pumping my chest. He looked exhausted. He was sweating in the rain. I felt this sudden sharp pain in my sternum. It was like a hot needle. The man in the dark clothes looked at the red lights, then back at me. "They're calling you," he said. "I don't want to go back there," I said. I looked at the lines. They looked so stable, so perfect. Everything in my life was a mess. My marriage was hanging by a thread. I was 60 days behind on my targets. I was tired. I was so incredibly tired. "It's broken back there." He reached out and touched my forehead. His fingers were warm. "It's broken," he agreed. "But the Spirit is already there, Claire. He's in the ambulance. He's in the rain. He's in the blood on the door. We don't just stay in the gray." The pain in my chest got worse. It wasn't just a needle anymore. It felt like a sledgehammer. I could hear the paramedic's voice now. "Come on, Claire. Stay with me. Don't you quit." I looked at the man one last time. I wanted to ask him 1,000 questions. I wanted to ask him why my dad died when I was 12. I wanted to ask him if my job even mattered. I wanted to ask him how he could be 1 and 3 at the same time. But all I could say was, "Jesus?" He didn't say yes. He just squeezed my hand. "Go back to the lines, Claire. We'll talk about the rest when you're not in such a hurry." And then the gray exploded. It didn't go dark. It went white. Blinding, screaming white. I felt my body. I felt the wet fabric of my shirt. I felt the cold metal of the gurney. I felt the tube in my throat. And then I heard the most terrifying sound in the world. It was a beep. A single, steady beep from a monitor. I tried to open my eyes, but they were glued shut with something. Blood, probably. I tried to move my hand, and I felt someone grab it. "We got a pulse. She's back. Let's move." I wanted to tell them to stop. I wanted to tell them that the lines were more important. I wanted to tell them that the man in the dark clothes was still standing right there in the corner of the ambulance, even if they couldn't see him. But I couldn't say anything. I just laid there, listening to the siren, and I realized that the rhythm of the siren was exactly the same as the 3-beat pulse I'd felt in the gray. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm back now. It's been 9 days. I'm sitting in a hospital room at Northwestern. My legs are in casts. My jaw is wired shut. I'm typing this with one hand on a laptop. I look at the nurses when they come in. I look at the IV bags. I look at the chart at the end of my bed, and all I see are the lines. I see the father who thought of the medicine. I see the son who is standing by the bed. I see the spirit who is moving the air in and out of my lungs. I know how this sounds. I know. I'm the woman who yells at contractors when they're 5 minutes late. I'm the woman who lives by the spreadsheet. But the spreadsheet is wrong. It's missing the most important part. It's missing the source. I keep looking at the door, waiting for him to walk in. I know he won't. Not like that. But I can still smell the rain. I haven't told my husband yet. He thinks I'm just traumatized. He thinks I'm quiet because of the medication. He doesn't know that I'm still listening to the rhythm. I'm still trying to figure out why I was allowed to see the infrastructure. Why me? Why a logistics manager from the South Side? I don't have the answers. I just have the memory of his hand and that jagged scar. I have to go. The nurse is coming in to check my vitals. She looks tired. I think I'll try to smile at her. I think the spirit wants me to do that. I'm still here. I don't know why, but I'm here. And the rain, it's still falling outside the window. I can hear it hitting the glass. Swish, swish, swish. It sounds like a heartbeat. I'm probably making this up. That's what I keep telling myself. I'm sitting here in 402 East, looking at the plastic pitcher of water on my tray, and I'm thinking, Claire, you had a traumatic brain injury. You were oxygen deprived for 7 minutes. Your brain just dumped every random file it had into a dream to keep from shutting down. That's the version that makes sense. It's the version I can put in a report. But then I look at the picture, and I don't just see the plastic. I see the lines again. When I was back in that gray space with him, the man who smelled like the rain, the scale of everything shifted. I wasn't looking at a room anymore. I was looking at the master schematic. That's the only word I have. I spent 10 years at a firm where we handled just-in-time delivery for global manufacturing. We knew where every bolt, every circuit board, and every gallon of fuel was at any given second. We called it the visibility layer. Standing there with him, I realized our visibility layer was a joke, a child's drawing. He didn't lead me through a door. He just moved his hand, and the gray walls seemed to thin out, like a fog lifting. And suddenly I was looking at Chicago, but not the Chicago I know. I wasn't looking at the skyline or the Sears Tower. I was looking at the people. Thousands of them, millions. They were moving through the streets, sitting in offices, sleeping in their beds. And every single one of them was connected to these lines I'd seen earlier. The lines weren't just paths. They were supply chains of life. I saw a woman in a coffee shop in the Loop. She was crying. I could see the line connected to her. It was vibrating. It was gray and thin. And then I saw another line, one that looked different, intersecting with hers. It came from a man 2 tables over. He didn't even know her. He just looked up, noticed she was upset, and handed her a napkin. When he did that, the line between them flashed. Not like a light, like a pulse of, I don't know, information? Love? You see how it works? The man in the dark clothes asked. He was standing right behind me. I could feel the heat coming off him. Nothing is disconnected, Claire. There are no ghost shipments. Nothing is lost in transit. I looked at him. I was trying to find the catch. In my job, there's always a catch. There's always a delay. There's always a lost container in the middle of the Pacific. Who runs it? I asked. My voice sounded small. Who manages the inventory? He laughed. It was a short, dry sound, like he wasn't making fun of me, but he was surprised I was still thinking in terms of management. You're still looking for the CEO, he said. I'm looking for the one in charge, I corrected him. He moved closer. He pointed to the lines, then to the sky, then to the woman in the coffee shop. The Father is the source of the intent, he said. He spoke slowly, like he was explaining a complex route to a new driver. He is the one who wills the connection to exist. He is the architect of the entire system. He is the will. I thought about my own father. He was a guy who worked in insurance and died before I could even tell him I'd made the varsity soccer team. He was always distant, like a ghost in my own house. I'd always thought of God the Father like that. A distant boss who sent down memos but never showed up for the site visit. He's not distant, Claire, the man said. He answered me before I even spoke. The Father is the very ground you're standing on. He is the reason there is a here at all. Then he touched one of the lines, the one connected to the woman in the coffee shop. And I, he said, and his voice changed. It got heavier, solid. I am the word. I am the way the will becomes a reality. I am the structure, the framework. Without me, the Father's intent has no place to land. I am the delivery. I am the incarnate manifestation of the plan. He didn't use the word manifest. I shouldn't have used it. He said he was the material, the flesh of the thought. I looked at his hand again, that jagged scar. It looked like a hole in the system, like someone had tried to break the line right there at his wrist. And the spirit? I asked. The air around us seemed to hum. It wasn't a sound, really. It was more like a vibration in my teeth. The spirit is the movement, he said. The Father wills. I build. The spirit carries. He is the one who moves the napkin from the man's hand to the woman's table. He is the connectivity, the actual life flowing through the lines. If I am the road and the Father is the map, the spirit is the engine. I shook my head. I felt that retroactive doubt creeping in again. My brain was trying to find a flaw in the logic. But you're three people, I said. You just said I and he and the Father. That's a committee. That's three separate entities. In logistics, if you have three separate departments, you have three separate sets of problems. You have silos. You have communication breakdowns. He stepped so close I could see the weave of his shirt. It looked like denim, plain, worn-out denim. Do we look like we have a communication breakdown, Claire? He wasn't angry. He was patient, in a way that made me feel like an idiot for even asking. We are one, he said. One essence, one nature, three persons. It's not three gods. It's not one God wearing three hats. It's one God who exists in an eternal relationship of love. The Father loves the Son. The Son honors the Father. The Spirit is the love that binds them and pours out into the world. It's a perfect, unbreakable circle of relationship, and you were made to be part of that circle. I looked back at the lines. I saw the woman in the coffee shop again. She was blowing her nose now. She looked a little better. I saw the lines of the city again, the grid of Chicago, and I realized I was seeing a shadow of what he was talking about. We try so hard to build systems. We build internet cables and flight paths and shipping lanes. We're trying to mimic what he already did. We're trying to find a way to stay connected because we were made in the image of a God who is, by his very nature, a connection. I don't think I'm the right person for this, I said. I felt my voice cracking. I'm not. I'm a cold person. My husband tells me I'm like a machine. I just want the numbers to add up. I just want the trucks to arrive on time. I don't know how to be part of a relationship like that. The man reached out and put his hand on my shoulder. It didn't feel like a ghostly touch. It felt like a real, heavy human hand. The kind of hand that has worked, that has held things. The Father knew you'd say that, Claire. He's the one who gave you that mind for numbers. He loves the way you see the order of things, and I'm the one who stood in the way when the order was broken. And the Spirit, he paused. He looked down at the gray floor. The Spirit is the reason you're even standing here right now, asking these questions. He's the one who woke you up in that ambulance. He's the one who is whispering to you right now that this isn't a dream. I looked at his face. I tried to memorize every detail. The way his hair was a bit messy, the way he had these tiny lines around his eyes. He looked so normal and so completely impossible at the same time. Why show me? I asked. Why not a priest? Why not someone who can actually explain this without using a shipping metaphor? Because you needed to know that the system is safe, he said. You've spent your whole life being afraid that a single mistake would crash the whole thing. You've been carrying the weight of the warehouse on your back, Claire, but the warehouse isn't yours. It's ours. Suddenly, the gray space started to vibrate. The lines began to blur. I felt that magnetic pull again right behind my belly button. Wait, I said. I'm not ready. I don't understand the father part yet. My dad, he was so quiet, he never told me he was proud of me. How can God be a father if I don't even know what that looks like? The man's face softened. He looked at me with a look that I can't even describe it. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. The father is the one who has been cheering for you from the sidelines since your first step, Claire. He was there when your dad couldn't be. He was the one who gave you the strength to keep going when you felt like you were invisible. You were never invisible to him. The gray started to fade into a dark, bruised purple. I could hear the sound of the rain again, but it was muffled, like I was underwater. I have to go back? I asked. Not yet, he said. There's one more thing you need to see. You need to see what happened when the lines were cut. He didn't move, but the purple darkness began to swirl around us. I felt a sudden sharp chill. Not the cold of the rain, a different kind of cold. The cold of a system that has completely shut down. I looked at the man. He was still there, but he looked different now. He looked older, tired. And then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in that space. It was the sound of a metal frame buckling. The sound of my SUV hitting the center divider on I-90. But it wasn't coming from the highway. It was coming from him. I reached out to grab his sleeve, but my hand went right through it. He was starting to flicker, like a fluorescent light that's about to burn out. Jesus! I yelled. He didn't look at me. He was looking at something I couldn't see. Something dark and heavy that was moving toward us in the purple fog. The father is still here, Claire, he whispered. His voice was getting fainter, and the spirit is still moving, even when you can't feel the rhythm. And then he was gone. I was alone in the purple dark. No lines, no man, no rain, just a silence so heavy it felt like it was crushing my lungs. I tried to breathe, but there was no air. I tried to scream, but there was no sound. I was just a point on a map with no coordinates. I thought I was lost. I thought the inventory had finally been deleted. And then, in the middle of that crushing silence, I felt a tiny, almost imperceptible vibration. 1, 2, 3. It was coming from my own chest. 1, 2, 3. I wasn't the one making it happen. I couldn't have made my heart beat if I'd wanted to. Someone else was doing the work. I just laid there in the dark, listening to that tiny rhythm, and I waited for the father to turn the lights back on. The purple didn't stay purple. It started to get grainy, like an old television screen when the signal is dying. I could see these static-filled shapes moving around me. It was loud, too. Not a scream, but a low-frequency hum that made the back of my neck ache. I tried to cover my ears, but I didn't have hands. Well, I had them, but they were just outlines. I was a sketch of a person standing in a construction site for a world that wasn't finished. I'm probably just remembering a movie. That's what I keep thinking. I probably saw some sci-fi flick, and my dying brain just decided to play a mashup. It's more likely than meeting the creator of the universe in a denim shirt. You're doing it again, a voice said. It was him. Jesus. He was sitting on a crate, just a plain wooden shipping crate. He was leaning forward, his elbows on his knees, watching me like I was a problem he'd been trying to solve for a long time. I'm doing what? I asked. I tried to stand up straight, but I felt like I was made of liquid. You're trying to find the exit, he said. You're looking for the logical flaw that proves I'm not here. You're trying to debunk your own life, Claire. I looked away from him. I looked at the static shapes. I'm a logistics person. If the numbers don't balance, the shipment doesn't exist. None of this balances. You're telling me you're God, but you're a man. You're telling me there's a father, but he's invisible. You're telling me there's a spirit, but he's a vibration. It's messy. It's inefficient. He stood up. He didn't walk toward me. He just was suddenly closer. It's not inefficient, he said. It's personal. That's what you hate about it. You want a system you can program. You want a God who is an algorithm. But the Father isn't a line of code, Claire. He's a person. He has a heart, and he's been trying to talk to you through the word, through me, since before you knew how to read a spreadsheet. He doesn't talk to me, I said. I felt my throat get tight. It was that feeling you get right before you lose it in a meeting, where you have to swallow hard to keep your voice from shaking. My dad didn't talk either. Not really. I saw it then. A memory. It hit me like a physical weight. I was 9 years old. My dad was sitting at the kitchen table in our house in Naperville. He had his insurance files spread out everywhere. I had just come home from school with a certificate. I'd been promoted to junior captain of the safety patrol. It was a big deal to me. I stood there for 5 minutes, holding that piece of paper, waiting for him to look up. He didn't. He just kept moving his highlighter across the pages. He wasn't being mean. He was just busy. He was managing the system. He was making sure the inventory was correct. He didn't have space for a 9-year-old with a certificate. You think the Father is like that, Jesus said. He was standing right in front of me now. I could see the pores on his skin. I could see the dirt under his fingernails. He looked like someone who had been working in the dirt. Isn't he? I asked. My eyes were stinging. He's got the whole world to run. Why would he look up from his files for me? I'm just one more unit in the warehouse. Jesus reached out. He didn't touch me. He just gestured to the space around us. The static shape started to clear. I saw the lines again, the infrastructure of Chicago, but they were different now. They weren't just lines. They were gold, like copper wires carrying a massive electrical current. The Father doesn't have files, Claire. He has children, and he doesn't look down at you. He looks at you every second of every day. When you were standing at that table with your certificate, the Father was the one who was swelling with pride. He was the one who was telling the Spirit to whisper to you that you were seen. But you were so focused on the man who couldn't look up that you missed the God who never looked away. I put my hands over my face. I could feel my skin. It was hot. I don't know how to believe that, I whispered. It feels like a safety net, like a story people tell themselves so they don't feel alone. It's not a story, Jesus said. He put his hand on my shoulder. The weight of it was so real it made me stumble. It's the only thing that's actually real. I am the Word. I am the Father's voice made audible. I came down there to say the things he couldn't say through the insurance files. I came to tell you that the warehouse is on fire, Claire, and I'm the one who stayed inside to get you out. Is that what the Spirit is? I asked. I was breathing fast now. The air in this place felt different, thicker, like it was charged with ozone. The one who gets us out? The Spirit is the breath, Jesus said. He leaned in close. I could feel his breath on my cheek. He's the one who takes my words and makes them live in your chest. He's the one who takes the Father's love and makes it a physical reality in your nervous system. We aren't working against each other. We are the rescue. The Father sends. I save. The Spirit sustains. It's one motion, Claire. One heart. 3 beats. I looked at the lines again. They were pulsing now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going back, aren't I? I asked. I looked at my hands. They were becoming more solid. I could see my wedding ring. I could see the scar on my thumb from when I'd cut myself opening a box at work. You're going back, Jesus said. But you're not going back to the same warehouse. You're going back to the place where we are already working. He stepped back. The static started to return. The grains of the world were getting bigger, more blurry. Wait, I yelled. I reached for him. I caught his hand, the one with the scar. It didn't feel like a hand anymore. It felt like a live wire. What do I tell them? I asked. What do I tell my husband? What do I do with my job? Jesus looked at me. The grainy static was swallowing his face. But his eyes, they were the last thing I saw. They weren't the eyes of a boss. They were the eyes of someone who had just handed me a gift I didn't know how to open. Tell them the infrastructure is held together by love, Claire, not by spreadsheets. And as for your job, stop trying to be the CEO. We've already got that covered. The sound of the hum peaked. It was deafening. It felt like my head was being vibrated apart. I felt a sudden freezing cold, and then I saw the red lights again. Not the golden lines, not the grainy static, the red rotating lights of a Chicago Fire Department ambulance. I could hear the rain hitting the roof. Tink, tink, tink. I could hear a man's voice. He was panting. I'm losing her again. Charged to 200. Clear. I felt the electricity hit my chest. It wasn't like his hand. It was violent. It was a violation. I wanted to tell them to stop. I wanted to tell them I was fine. I wanted to tell them I was with the Word. But my mouth was full of something thick and metallic. I tried to swallow. I couldn't. I heard a beep. A long, flat beep. And then silence. I was hovering somewhere between the ambulance and the gray room. I could see the paramedic's face. He was crying. I didn't know his name, but I could see the gold line connected to his heart. It was frayed. It was almost broken. He was so tired, and then I felt it. A tiny, warm pressure on the small of my back, like someone was pushing me. 1, 2, 3. The beep changed. Beep, beep. We got her. She's back. Oh, thank God. She's back. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see the ambulance. I wanted to see the crate. I wanted to see the man in the denim shirt, but all I could feel was the cold rain dripping off the paramedic's jacket onto my forehead. And the rhythm that wouldn't stop. I'm sitting here now in the hospital, and I keep looking at my hands. I keep looking for the gold. I don't see it. But sometimes, when the room is quiet, I can still hear the hum. I can still feel the ozone in the air. I haven't gone back to work yet. My boss called 3 times today. I haven't picked up. I'm too busy listening. I'm still trying to figure out how to live in a world that's held together by something I can't put in a report. I'm still just a logistics manager. But I think I'm beginning to understand the delivery. The hospital isn't quiet. I don't care what they say in the brochures. It's a constant screech of rubber soles and those little electronic chirps from the IV pumps. Every time the pump in 402 resets, it makes this double click sound. Click, click. It drives me crazy. It reminds me of a terminal error in a freight tracking system. Just a small, persistent reminder that something is stuck in the queue. I keep trying to find that gray room again. I close my eyes and try to force my brain to render the lines, but it's gone. All I have is the memory of it, and even that is starting to feel thin, like a photocopy of a photocopy. I'm 34 years old. I have a mortgage. I have a 401k that I check once a week. People like me don't meet God. We meet accountants. We meet regional directors. But I can't explain the rescue. In that last moment before the ambulance lights finally swallowed everything, Jesus showed me how it worked. We were standing in the static, and he pointed to where my body was. It looked like a total loss. Like a piece of equipment you just write off because the repairs would cost more than the value. You see the bottleneck, he asked? I did. It wasn't just the car crash. It was the weight of everything. The way I'd been trying to route my own life through these narrow, crowded lanes. I was failing. The Father doesn't write off the loss, Jesus said. His hand was still on my shoulder. He's the one who authorized the recovery. He's the reason the rescue was even on the schedule. Then he showed me the bridge. It wasn't a structure made of stone. It was a person. It was him. He was standing between the Father's intent and the Spirit's movement. He was the one taking the impact. I saw the crash again, but this time I saw it from the infrastructure side. I saw the moment of collision. I saw the metal buckling, but I also saw a hand. Not a metaphorical hand, a physical, scarred hand that was literally holding the frame of my SUV together just long enough for the paramedic to get his fingers under the door. I took the weight, Jesus said. His voice was like a hammer hitting an anvil, solid, unyielding. The Father planned the route. I became the road, and the Spirit. He gestured to the air. The ozone smell got stronger. The Spirit is the one who is breathing for you right now, Claire. He's the one applying the rescue to your heart. He's the one who won't let the line break. It was a 3-part operation. 1 rescue, 3 distinct actions. The Father's will, the Son's sacrifice, the Spirit's power. I looked at him, and for a second, I didn't see a man in a denim shirt. I saw the center of the universe. I saw the only reason anything, from a shipment of microchips to a human heart, ever gets where it's going. And then I felt the slam. It was like being dropped from a 10-story building. I didn't fall into the ambulance. I hit it. I felt the dry, hot air of the heater. I felt the scratchy wool of the blanket. I felt the agonizing, white-hot fire in my legs. She's conscious, Claire. Stay with me. Look at me. I opened my eyes. The paramedic, the young guy with the frayed gold line, was leaning over me. He had a smudge of grease on his forehead. I tried to tell him about the denim shirt. I tried to tell him that his line was being repaired by the Spirit, even as he worked on mine. I just coughed up blood instead. The next few days were a blur of surgical prep and the smell of iodine. They told me the bleeding in my brain had stopped spontaneously. They said it was a statistical anomaly, a 1 in a million recovery. I just nodded. I let them think it was luck. I let them think it was their skill. They're good doctors. Don't get me wrong. But they're just the delivery drivers. They don't know who owns the fleet. My husband, Mark, came in yesterday. He sat by the bed and held my hand. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. He kept talking about the insurance claim and the new car we'd have to get. He was trying to manage the system. He was trying to find the order in the chaos. I wanted to tell him that the order isn't in the car, it's in the relationship. I wanted to tell him that the Father loves him, that the Son is praying for him, that the Spirit is waiting for him to just stop talking for 5 minutes so he can hear the rhythm. I didn't say it, I just squeezed his hand. I'm sitting here now, looking at my laptop. It's sitting on the rolling tray. It was in my bag during the crash. The screen is cracked. There's a spider web of black lines running across the bottom left corner. But it still works. I opened it this morning. I shouldn't have. The doctor told me no screens, but I had to see. I logged in, and there it was. The file I was working on at 3:10 p.m. on the day of the crash. FY27 projections.xlsx. I looked at the cells. I looked at the formulas. I looked at the expected growth column. I stood at the edge of the world. I saw the infrastructure of eternity. I saw the Godhead moving in perfect, beautiful unity to save a logistics manager who didn't even like her own job. And yet, here I am. I can't bring myself to close the file. I just stare at the blinking cursor in cell B42. It's waiting for me to enter a number. It's waiting for me to project the future. But I don't have a number. I don't know what's going to happen next quarter. I don't even know if I'll be able to walk to the bathroom without a walker by Tuesday. I keep thinking about the junior captain certificate. I keep thinking about my dad's highlighter. And then I think about the man on the crate. I look at the cracked screen of my laptop, and for a second, the black cracks look like those lines, the ones from the gray room. The cursor just keeps blinking. On, off, on, off. It's a rhythm. Not quite 3 beats, not yet, but it's a start. I think I'm going to leave the laptop open for a while. I'm just going to sit here and listen to the rain on the window of Northwestern Memorial. It's still raining in Chicago. It hasn't stopped since I came back. Claire spent most of her account describing things that shouldn't be possible. The lines, the infrastructure, a man on a shipping crate who knew her name. But there's one detail she mentioned almost in passing at the very beginning of her story. She said that right before the impact on I-90, she could taste copper. In medical literature, a metallic taste is often associated with a sudden, massive surge of adrenaline or a localized temporal lobe seizure. But there's a 1974 study from the University of Chicago that looked at anomalous sensory inputs in high-velocity collisions. They found that in a very small percentage of survivors, that copper taste wasn't a biological reaction. It was a physical one. They theorized that the sheer force of the metal buckling creates a brief, intense electromagnetic field, a literal rip in the local environment. Claire didn't know about that study. She just knew what she tasted before her world turned gray. She's still in her room at Northwestern Memorial, staring at a spreadsheet she can't finish.